you end up practicing this important human attribute called empathy. And empathy is one of those important things that human beings can relate to, that they can exchange, and it's very unique to people. And so when we start practicing empathy, man, there is a world of transformation that takes place.
Welcome to the It Matters podcast. I'm your host, Walter Perez, and let's dive in as we help you grow your mindset and elevate your leadership.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the It Matters podcast. Thanks for joining me on another episode. I'm your host, Walter Perez. Excited to have you here because, man, there's a lot of things going in my mind right now about, it's the Christmas season. At the time of this recording, we're getting ready as we're a week into December. The New Year's around the corner. There's a lot of different things that are going in our minds. And I'm excited that you're joining me because we're continuing to challenge ourselves, to encourage ourselves to be better so we can not only lead better, but we can be better people, that we can be better leaders in our homes, in our works, in our businesses, in our daily lives. And so I'm very thankful that all of you are here. And I want to ask you for a favor, that if this is impacting you, can you share it with somebody? Can you pass it on? Can you let me know what you're thinking? Comment, like it, pass it on so we can continue to grow this and be able to pass it on to more people. And so, as I think about the new year being around the corner, I love to encourage everybody to start thinking now about that and not wait until January 1st, because we want to be able to be proactive and start the new year just running and going and already on a good pace. And so there's a lot of different thoughts as I think about, what we've talked about in the last couple of episodes, whether we're talking about being, a great leader in the sense of living well, we're talking about being healthy, being whole, being human. And I want to just continue on that theme a little bit about what makes us all of that. And one of the ways that we can be a good human, by the way, is an understanding that we're people, is being able to become better storytellers. Now, I'm not talking about just any story. I'm not talking about just a communication hack. I'm actually talking about us becoming better at sharing our own stories. And so let me ask you this. Do you realize that your story matters? Do you realize that you have something to share? And maybe some of you are going to really quickly go, no. I'm not ready to talk about my story. I don't have anything, worthwhile to share. I don't, I'm not ready. I'm not through my story. Let me tell you this. The power of your story is super important, whether you're starting out, you're in the middle of your story, or you're coming to an end of it. There is a lot of power in that, because you just have to be one or two steps ahead of somebody to be able to share your thoughts, your story. This is the thing. This is the thing. It's your story. And so what if your story had the power and the potential to impact somebody? What if your story, okay, I want you to get this thought. What if your story happens to be the breakthrough for somebody else because you were willing to share, you were willing to talk about not only the victories, but the struggle, the hardship, the good, the bad, and the ugly? What if you were able to share that and help somebody else in the process? Well, I got to tell you, we got to not buy into this idea that only experts can share a story and cause transformation. No, actually, I think real powerful stories come from ordinary people that actually have extraordinary, truth, power behind them. And I want you to believe that that's you as well, that you have that potential, because 100% you do. And I've seen it in my own life. And this is the thing. You don't have just one story taking place in your life right now. There's multiple facets. Now, all these stories make maybe one big story, but there's a lot of different seasons. There's a lot of different things that are going on in your life, that some of them are, you're kind of walking through them. Some of them are easier, some of them are harder, but you're actually living through that and it's helping you out. And so this podcast, maybe it's an opportunity to reflect a little bit and to think, actually, I might have something of value to share with somebody. And actually, let me correct that. Not might. You do have something of value because your story matters. And so I want you to really think about that. And here, maybe I'll give you some more thoughts on why this would be important. See, when you share your story, somebody out there might have some defense mechanism that is put up and thinking, now I can't learn from anybody. It's only, it only applies to them. It's not going to work for me. Well, when you start showing your real life story, their defense mechanisms come down because what they realize is that, oh, this person's real. You see, people can argue with maybe when you give advice. Because sometimes people don't really understand where that advice is coming from. But when you share your story, people cannot argue against that because it's your story. You lived it, you have experienced it. Somebody can't argue against that because you are living proof that that actually happened and that you went through that. And whether there was good things or bad things that happened, you come out on the other side, and you're that example of how you handle that. And so it's important to know that you end up now, through your story, you get to activate courage in other people. You get to activate possibilities in others. You even give people permission in a matter of speaking to realize, like, oh, I can move forward. I'm allowed to move on and not stay stuck. You become this example for people that if they're going through pain, that they can actually break through that. That they don't have to live in that. That doesn't have to become their identity. See, sometimes we think that there's some stories that we hear about, or some things that we're going through is unique to us, and that is only that you're the only one in the world and nobody else understands you. And it's not true. It's not true. And it's cool when we get to share our story now. And I'll share in a little bit of examples of where I've seen that come to life in me. And then you realize, like, okay, I can help. I can really guide somebody else. And you don't have to have your story finished, by the way. And you don't have to be at the end, like I've said. You can be already talking to people right now because you're learning. And that's why it's important to reflect, to think about what's going on. And hopefully you're facing it with a healthy mentality of going, I'm going to get through this and I'm going to learn and I'm going to become better as I move through. And so, when we learn that, we actually learn how to heal, and we learn how to, the breakthrough is not just getting to the other side, but it's actually learning the healing process in this journey. And that actually becomes a tool for somebody else to grab on and say, oh man, there's healing opportunities. There is things that I can learn in the process of it, and that is powerful. That we're not just trying to live through, we're not just trying to get through, we're not just trying to rush through our lives, but we're actually going, okay, what am I learning here? What's the process all about? Why is it powerful? What am I gonna heal from? What do I need to change? What am I gonna transform? It becomes really cool when you share your story and you say, hey, you can do that too. And you know, you're basically saying to somebody, hey, I've been there too, and you can get through that because I have lived that and I'm an example of that. You end up practicing this important human attribute called empathy. And empathy is one of those important things that human beings can relate to, that they can exchange, and it's very unique to people. And so when we start practicing empathy, man, there is a world of transformation that takes place. And again, you end up connecting, you end up understanding, and you end up sharing this idea that if I can get through it, so can you. If I've done this, you're able to also learn from this and keep moving. Stories create hope. Stories create hope, and that is something that I think that we really need to grasp on, is that when we're sharing, when we're passing it on, we are being hopeful people, and we're not just being downers and negative people that say, hey, this is just, This is the cards that I've been dealt with, and I can't do anything different about it. We get to instill hope, and that is one superpower that I think is one that we need to continue to tap into, because when hope is alive and hope is given to people, it can change and transform people. Uh, it's an idea that then transforms people into this knowledge of saying, well, this is not just an inspiration. Our stories can also become instructions. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that we end up becoming people that give people roadmaps on how to get through things. Like, it's not a guesswork, because you've done it and you've learned. Now you can learn from the victories and the good things that you've done, but you're going to learn from your mistakes. And somebody else's mistakes, or your mistakes, can become somebody else's victories, because they don't have to go repeat that. So how cool is that, that we can become these roadmaps through our stories, so people can have not only hope but have instructions and be able to continue moving forward. We teach people that our steps work and what didn't work. We end up helping them avoid mistakes, and that's not a bad idea, because we become that example of saying, hey, we can do this. Stories create courage. Sometimes all we need is a little bit of a push. Sometimes we just need somebody to say, like, hey, you can do this. And courage is something that is very real and helpful, because um, we need to step out of our comfort zone. We need to step into this fear that we have sometimes, and thinking that things are going to just go worse and bad and evil. Like, no, sometimes we just need the courage to say, I just have to step through this tension, which we talked about last week. We need to step through the tension, so then I can then learn and grow more and learn more about what I'm going through, and how that it applies to my story specifically in my life. Having courage is one of the ways that people can move forward, because they get to hear it. They get to hear it, and it instills hope and everything else we've been talking about. So I'm telling you these things because I want you to be inspired coming out of this episode, going, I need to share my story, because it's going to give many others an opportunity to break free from whatever chains that they feel that they're stuck in. See, you get to hear, when somebody hears your story, they're hearing truth. That's why it's important to be authentic. When they hear truth, then it gives them permission, as I said to you, to confront their own lies and to confront their own insecurities, like shame. These self negative talks that we give ourselves, saying, my story's not valuable. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be able to, be able to overcome this, overcoming the fear of judgment. We're going to think that people are going to judge us because we think that they're better than us. No, our stories become an opportunity for them to actually grow. And so when we remind people through our stories that, hey, vulnerability is actually power. Vulnerability is leadership. Vulnerability is actually a good thing, because we get to be authentic and real, and we end up, we start believing that we are good enough, actually, in this process, that our stories have a significant um part in the world, and that maybe we haven't arrived, but this is some of the steps that we need to take first before we get to the next level. And so, realizing that, hey, okay, I now I believe in myself. Now I actually know that I do matter, and that what I'm doing is a part of the bigger picture. See, some people are waiting to hear your story, because this then normalizes some of the challenges. It brings, faith into this process. You end up seeing this movie moment and going, okay, this is what I wanted to hear. This is the encouragement that I needed to know, that I'm not the only one out there, as I've said, right? So it allows us to break free from any lies that we're believing, which is important, because we all tell ourselves lies. We all believe in these mind games, that we are not good enough, that we're never going to make it out, that that we are the worst people in this planet that we're never going to, nobody cares, that everybody's going to judge us. Yeah. So let me say this. Maybe, maybe somebody will, but there's some hurting people out there that have their own securities and they don't know how to break through as well. But if we continue and moving forward and knowing, hey, no, I'm a healthy person and I'm doing this for the right reasons. I'm being real. I'm not being perfect. I'm a human. And one of the ways that I can live my life is by being authentic. And being authentic doesn't sound polished. Being authentic sometimes doesn't sound, perfect and good and all the things, all the things looking like that, just perfectly and just right. Things don't always have to be in the right place. We just have to be real and authentic, and that's what people connect to. When we're authentic, people connect because they know that we're not being fake. They know we're not making it up. That's why it's important to share the struggle, not just the victories, because in the struggle is when we show ourselves that we're being real. People connect more in the middle here, not just the highlights, right? We're not just showing the good parts, we're showing the brokenness, and that in return, I think, makes it practical. It makes it something that we can grasp and catch on to and say, oh, okay, there is some practicality to this. There's something that I can learn from this. There's something that I can apply. There's something that I can take and take it away and then kind of just dissect a little bit and digest it so I can apply it to my situation. So making it practical is important. So give give your story a chance. Give your story a chance because there's so much that you can do with your story that somebody's just waiting. Your story can become somebody's breakthrough, and that to me is worth it. That's to me is worth it because somebody's just waiting out there to get a little bit of hope. Somebody's waiting out there to just experience somebody else's story to give them permission to move forward. I've experienced this in my own life. As many of you know that I'm an advocate for a rare liver disease because I have two children that have that. Listen, I share often with people what we've gone through because it has not been easy. It is hard. It is difficult to know that you have a child that is not only sick, that has a progressive disease that's getting worse, that actually could, lead to uh, being fatal. Like it's something that is very real in our lives. And there's many ways that I can handle that. There's been times that I've handled it with sadness and grieving. I've handled it with power and when I'm courage. Uh, there's times that I've handled it with feeling like a failure. Sometimes I felt like I'm hopeless because it's like, what are we going to do? There's not a lot of answers. But one of the things that I've learned through hearing other people's stories when they go, they're a few steps ahead. Some of them, have stories of how the challenge looked like early on, being in the hospital, being out of the hospital. This, their experiences have helped me going, okay, there's actually hope as we come as a community and when we realize that we need each other, we need support, there is power in that. And so for me, showing up authentically in my story with people and saying like, you know what, I'm in a season right now which is not easy, I'm in a season where I'm struggling, and then when I come out of that and going, you know what, I'm in a season where it's hopeful right now. I am feeling like I'm experiencing my own breakthrough. I've seen other people being impacted by my story, by my hope, by my perspective. Those things help. Man, sometimes you feel like I need to have it all together. I have felt like that, but you know what? That doesn't really help anybody because who am I trying to get better for? Who am I trying to feel good for? Yeah, sometimes we want to have a positive attitude. Sometimes we want to be able to give hope to our kids and to be able to say, yeah, we're moving forward. We don't know, we don't got all the answers, but we're trying to figure it out on the go. One of the important parts when you're going through hard things and through a hard life is that how can you enjoy this moment? Don't let hard things steal away the hope or steal away your life because of the unknown. See, we can make up stuff in our minds and we can quickly get lost in this journey of what ifs. But the what ifs are just this fear-based and anxious thoughts that we just feel because we don't have control. But the reality is a lot of that can be lies. because we don't know for a fact what's going to happen tomorrow. And the reality is that there might be a cure coming down the road. There might be some good things. And I know that my story has put me in a season of life, in a place where I would have never been. I would have never met certain people. I would have never had certain conversations. I would have never traveled certain places. Now, it's unfortunate that it had to be done through some hard things, but hey, if I embrace my story in this authentic self of going like, yeah, you know what? I'm a father that has a couple of sick kids, and we're going to make the best out of it. We're going to make the best out of it because in the process, I'm going to try to help my own kids, and I'm going to help other kids, and we're going to help other families, and we're going to enjoy the journey while we're here. Whether this journey is going to last or not, we're going to try to make the best of this life, and we're going to try to make the best of what we got going on. And that's why I do things like this, because I'm not going to let this rare liver disease steal my hope, my dreams, my potential. I can still work on this business. I can still do these podcasts because I'm being authentic to me, and I believe that these things matter. And so sometimes, good things are going on, and we'll talk about that. And sometimes challenging things are going on, but that's part of life. And so if we can learn to talk about our stories more, and I definitely could get better at it 100%. And what I just shared is just one part of my story. There's so much more pieces and building blocks to who I am, my background, where I've come from, my parents, all of that, friends and all that. There's other challenges that we have in our lives, and there's an appropriate time to share those, and how they've developed you. But when we look back, all these different stories have played an intricate part in becoming who you are. And I am a sum of my victories and my challenges, my hard times, my good times, my attitude, my positive and negative things. Me learning and growing from all that is what makes me who I am today. And I know that you can have the same experience. And so I want to encourage you to think about that, because more and more people need to hear what you've been through. More and more people need to hear what you've been through. So think about that, because you're going to be helping people. If your breakthrough, if your breakthrough could change somebody's lives, would you start telling your story? That's the question of the day. If your breakthrough could impact somebody else's life, would you start sharing your story more? Think about that. And then it's not about making it pretty. It's not about polishing it up. It's just about sharing what we're going through. Because there's a chapter in your story. There's a chapter in your story that could be somebody else's, breakthrough and hope that they need to hear. It might not even be the whole story. It might just be one little piece of your life that they need to hear. One little piece. So don't get overwhelmed by it. Just start continuing to just knowing the moments when people need to hear from you. Be authentic, and it'll just come out. It'll just be part of who you are. You don't even have to plan, share your story. Just telling your story is part of living your life. When you live your life, the story just comes out. We start being true. We start being honest, authentic. Oh man, and we're going to impact a lot of lives. So I hope this really makes you think, and it adds value to you, because I want you to know that your story matters, and you don't need to tell somebody else's story. Become good at telling your own, and you start that by just living your life and being real and authentic. And that is one thing that is required to be human, because we are human, and with all of that comes the victories and the challenges, and that's okay. And that's okay. And we don't need to have our story finished. We can just start talking about where we're at right now and start one chapter at a time and see it take off. I hope this adds value. Thank you for joining me on another episode. All of this too is a part of us leading well, and we get to lead our lives well. And in that, it's a win-win when the leader leads well, because we're impacting others along the way. I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.